Yeah, good morning, every one of you. So today we are going to see the topic, scientific procedure or steps in psychology. So what are the various scientific procedures we will be adopting or various steps or the process of psychology or psychological study, we can say. So what we are going to see. So this one. So we need to any psychological study. So it will be devised in such a way that it should be meeting the four different goals of a psychology. So these goals we have already studied in the previous videos that what are the goals of psychology. Like psychologist or psychologist's ultimate goal is to benefit humanity that we know. So the goal of any science of a psychology are nothing but to satisfy the four different goals. That is the description, understanding, prediction, and control. So this four goals needs to be satisfied by any type of psychological study or any type of psychologist who is studying that particular thing. So psychologist, what they will do? So to satisfy all these goals, they will have some certain steps or certain process, we can say, certain methodology they will be devising that one to study any type of case. So among them, the scientific procedure or steps in psychology on a broad context. So they will be drawn into four different steps. So first one, if you see, so it is this scientific procedure is nothing but it is the conceptual in terms of four different general steps that are very scientific in nature that will expand and refine the knowledge. So how to do that one? So first one is developing a research question. So they will be developing a research question. So how they will be developing a research question? By identifying, by observing something. So what is the probability that this particular person is behaving like this? Okay, how far that particular behavior will be going on. So like this, he will be devising some research question. Then next, he will be framing the research question in such a way that it will be forming some hypothesis. So that hypothesis will be tested in the next step. So developing an hypothesis. So this hypothesis, this is why that particular person is doing like this. Maybe this is the reason, and all this he will be devising one hypothesis. Then the third step is gathering the evidence to test the hypothesis. During the test of this hypothesis, maybe this is the possible reason or reasoning we can say. So after getting a reasoning, so he will be gathering an evidences for that particular hypothesis. So that is the third step. And fourth step is drawing conclusions about the hypothesis. So overall, all this will be looking as a scientific procedure. So what exactly, why we have to follow all these four different types of steps? For example, let us say, so psychologists are very much trying to be skeptical of claims. So are arguments which do not have any ground of evidence. So they are very much skeptical. So what do you mean by skeptical? These are nothing but dubious or doubtful or suspicious. Okay, there is no thing like suspicious things will be accepted in the psychology. No, psychologist or the psychology is nothing but a training process in which it will be involved. It will be involved uh, just to take out the skeptical things or suspicious things out. Only it's a scientific evidence method only. All the psychologists will have to follow. That's why the psychologists are very much trained to not to accept any type of dubious or skeptical things in general. So they are especially very skeptical of public opinion or folklore. So psychologists are usually they are opposing the public opinions or the skeptical things, or we can say the folklores. So what is this folklores? Nothing but an myths like traditional myths or a traditional beliefs without any proofs. So all this they will be just uh, crossing it as a dubious things. So that's why we have to study. There should be some scientific device or scientific steps that needs to be followed in every type of psychological study. So that's why they are very skeptical to any type of folklore or any type of skeptical things. So what distinguishes this psychology from other inquiries in human life or human nature? So that is nothing but, so like we can say this philosophy, theology, or poetry. These are also one type of things. Okay, so that type of studies is different from the psychology. How it is different from psychology? Why? Because psychology is very much different compared to the other things like theology, philosophy, poetry, and everything. Because psychology is a scientific method. It's a scientific base to gain a knowledge. So that's why psychologists will usually follow only the scientific methods in their studies. So psychologists adopt an empirical approach. So that is, they base their beliefs on evidence. Evidence they are gathered from experiments or careful observations in the case-to-case basis. They will be concluding that one. They will be drawing some evidences from that one. That's why it's called as a truly a scientific method. So there are four steps or the four scientific procedures which we have to adopt as a psychologist. That is developing a question, that is a research question, that is drawing of theory, observation, experiences, or common beliefs to formulate a researchable question. So we need to form a researchable question. Then we need to form a hypothesis, nothing but reframing the question in such a way that it should be testable. Okay, so that it becomes a specific prediction that can be tested through the research. And third step is after you form a hypothesis, so this hypothesis has to be tested to give some evidence, that is gathering evidence through the testing of the hypothesis. And finally, you need to draw some conclusions why that has been happened. In the conclusion, no, so mathematical technique like a statistical techniques are very much useful. That is using some statistical methods of analysis. They will be determining whether the data supports the hypothesis or not. What is the relationship between the data gathered and the hypothesis that has been framed during the questioning. So that we have to relate that one in the conclusion stage. Then only a statistical significance will be of, that is around 95% confidence intervals like a student t-test. So all this tests will be followed as a psychologist. So there needs to be well versed with the mathematics too, that is statistics too. So overall, if you summarize all the steps here, so what exactly the psychologist will perform or will do? So in the experimental procedure, that is, first of all, he will be developing a question. So they will be doing some background research or literature review. So this type of study will resemble, say, true research or scientific study, whatever the field, whatever it's engineering field or a science field or whatever the field, arts field. So everybody needs to be performing all this particular procedure, that is developing a question. So we will be developing a question, and after that, whether that question has been addressed or not, that we can find out through some background research or a literature review, we can say. So how we conduct that literature review? By just downloading some articles from the Google Scholar or some renowned databases like the Scopus, Web of Science and everything. We will be doing that background or literature review. Then after that, we will be constructing a research hypothesis. So this hypothesis will be tested very well by constructing some procedure oriented. Okay, whether it has been happening due to this reasoning or not. So to test that one, a hypothesis has to be developed. Then after developing this hypothesis, we need to test with an experiment. So, or we can, in short, we can say we can gather the evidences. So that evidences will be very much helpful in making a conclusion about the case. Now, after gathering an experimental or evidences, now we have to make a decision. So that is whether the procedure is working or not. If it is not working, so you need to change the hypothesis. So to that one, you need to troubleshoot the procedure and carefully check all the steps and the setups. So you need to go once again to the gathering evidence or test of the hypothesis. You have to go. If this procedure is working in your decision, then you can, yes, you can proceed to the analyze data and draw conclusions. So after that, you draw the conclusions based on your hypothesis, whether it is matching or not. You can know to the statistical significance test, like a student t-test. So whether the particular data is acceptable within the 95% confidence interval or not, we can easily know through this statistical significance. Then if the results are aligning with the hypothesis, yes, you can proceed to the communication, communicating to the results to the public. Or if it is not aligning, you need to show that results to the public or not. You have to decide whether that is results align partially or not at all. They are aligning with the hypothesis. If they are not aligning to the hypothesis, you need to go once again to the construction of hypothesis. Entirely the hypothesis has to be changed there. That is, this partially aligned or not aligned experimental data becomes a background research for a new or future projects. Then you need to ask a new question, form a new hypothesis, then experiment once again. Whether it is accepting the data or the hypothesis is relevant to the data or not, once again, you need to test with the statistical significance. Then this results, the negative results or the positive results, everything can be communicated with the general public through publication, through dissemination of your knowledge through various means. So in short, we can say these are the overall steps you need to follow in the psychological study. So these are scientific evidence method, not just folklore or not just folklore or not just a skeptical things. We do not accept as a psychologist. We accept only the scientific procedure that is strongly aligning with their hypothesis. So thank you. Thank you very much for listening.